You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams. Today, we have another amazing guest. She was on the U.S. National Tour 6, which was pre-COVID in 2019 and 2020 as Rumpleteazer. So welcome, Rose Iannaccone, and thank you for joining me.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you. Your stretch of this tour is fascinating to me because it was like I know you weren't there when it ended abruptly, but it was a very abrupt ending. But you also were the end of Broadway leading into the first tour and when the movie was happening. So you kind of were there during like a peak Cats chaos.
A lot of events.
We will get to that, but I want to start. I always love starting at the beginning. What was your introduction to Cats? When was the first time you got to see it?
I first saw Cats, the movie, the VHS, I was born in 1998 when it came out. So probably a couple years later.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I remember watching it in my living room as a kid and just doing my cartwheels in the living room and being all excited. Then I think I was only 5 years old, and it was coming through the Schubert in Connecticut where I was from, and I got to see it live. And then from there, I don't know, I was just kind of hooked. And then the year I moved to New York City was the Broadway revival. So then it sort of came back into my life there again. And then the tour happened. So
yeah. Okay. So were you a dancer as a kid? Was that the VHSs because you were dancing? And so,
yes.
So it
Started
really hit different. Okay.
Yes.
So you really, yeah.
Yeah, out of the womb.
Okay. So yeah, that's got to be very that is, so your parents bought that VHS of oh, she's dancing at 2. Let's show her this, this piece of theater that everyone loves from a dance perspective.
Exactly.
And then how old are you when you saw it in Connecticut?
I really think I was only 4 or 5.
So super young.
I was a kid. I was young.
And this had to have been the 5th tour that went on for 10, 12 years.
Probably.
So it's in Connecticut, it's in your hometown, and you're seeing a traveling tour. You're too young to get all the craziness at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So you're just,
no clue.
You're just loving to see it to dance.
Yes. I remember we were sitting in the front, the front row of the mezzanine and looking over, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then Green Eyes started, and there's these cats in there next to me, and it was just an absolutely wild experience. I was so excited, so stimulated. Nothing else I'd experienced before.
I love it. So Green Eyes terrified me. So I love that you as 4 or 5 were here they are.
Awesome.
Did the people go, because the tour, every production does it slightly different. Did Old Deuteronomy stay on stage in intermission and people go up to him?
Yes, I think he did. I feel like that's another memory I have. But I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like he did. But I could be confusing it with when I saw it on Broadway and you were allowed to go take a picture.
Yeah. And that was fun because I find that part fascinating because I also moved in 2016 to the city. And I also saw it very early in previews or sometime in previews. And it blew my mind of everyone come over and take a selfie with Old Deuteronomy.
Yes.
But in Connecticut, you might have a cell phone, but you don't have a camera phone at that point. You're not going up and taking it. So it's you're either going up to actually interact with the actor or you maybe are getting a Polaroid. I don't know how they did it back then.
I don't really know either. I can't exactly remember. So I won't say too much more on it.
Yeah. So then did you see it in 2016 when you got to the city?
I did. I think we saw it so the school I went to, the Institute for American Musical Theater, we got to see 1 to 2 Broadway shows each semester. And that was a part of my first semester in school. So it was the fall. I feel like it was October and we got to see it right when I got here.
Okay. Now, you see it now as an adult.
Yes.
What were the differences for you when you saw it as an adult versus the 4 or 5-year-old you?
Yeah, I don't think I knew the story at all. I don't think I really knew anything that was going on. It was more just mesmerizing.
Yeah.
So as an adult, you're oh, okay, I can see the story a little more. It's still mesmerizing. And I had a different appreciation for the set and like the climbing and the lighting, all things like that. So mesmerizing still, but a little bit more of understanding maybe what was actually being said, and it wasn't like mumbo jumbo with the lyrics.
Yeah. Did you pick up on some of like the innuendos and all the stuff that comes like as an adult? I definitely was, because I didn't see it as a child. So as an adult, I'm like, wow, this is dark and crazy and has some stuff that's clearly happening there that I like a 4-year-old's not going to notice.
Yeah. Honestly, I probably barely even noticed seeing it in 2016 too, because I think I was just excited and it was good. Like really just everything was happy, good, great. So I probably missed it then too.
Yeah. And someone you're also studying, theater and dance and everything at that point. How much of the differences between the choreography did you notice? Because I think in the Connecticut was probably Joanne Lynn versus Andy Blankenbuehler.
Yes. I think too, it's kind of like I did my homework before I went. Like I went back, I watched videos because, I was getting ready to go see it again. And I feel like I was like, what? There's like hip hop in this. What is that? What's this? But I loved it. And I knew it was different, but I liked it.
Yeah. That's the part where, to me, someone told me and I'm like, cool. It's like, it was all over my head. Now that I've seen the 1998 movie, because I saw it in reverse. I saw 2016 and then I was like, maybe I should watch this 1998 movie. And I can kind of pick up on it, but I don't study this. I don't know this.
Yeah.
But I do find it fascinating as someone who's in the career of like seeing something that's been around for so long, but has those tweaks, still keeps some of the essence, but does have some changes.
Definitely. I think too, Andy kept the most iconic moments. So you didn't feel like you were missing anything or like let down. Like you were expecting to see like, I don't know, like these signature moves and then they didn't happen. So all of that was still there. So everything in between was just bonus.
Yeah. There's a lot of traditionalists of like, oh, it's Joanne's show. But then it's like, I really like he put his own spin on it while keeping the core, and like honoring her, what she did. So it is kind of an interesting thing to see.
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk about then booking the tour, because this is 16. You're now 19. The show's ending on Broadway as you all are about to go on tour, correct?
Yes. I don't know the exact timeline, but we started, the auditions were in the summer of 2018.
Okay.
So I had just gotten back from like the job where I got my equity card, and it was my second audition as a member of Actors Equity. And it was my second one. My first one was an hour before. It was the same day. So
day one.
But so I remember that was 2018 in the summer, like in July or August. And then we rehearsed in December into January, teched it all, and we were open by like January 25th, I want to say, of 2019.
Yeah. So because you were in the original group that went, right?
Yes.
So you did all of I know you had some of the Broadway people kind of come and there was a couple that joined you from Broadway that went on tour early, but you did the whole Felinity School and like learning the story and all of that as a group, right?
Definitely. I got to experience all of that. Our first days of rehearsal were like learning the music, which was really like great because it's so much to learn.
Yeah.
But even just in learning the words, Kristen Blodgett, who was our music supervisor, she was like, and this means this, and you're saying this because it's your ritual. And right off the bat, everything was like given meaning. And then, we had like Felinity Day where we sat in a circle and it was like, come out, like you five come out and now interact with each other as cats. And we were like, what are we doing? But we did it.
That's the moment where, as someone who has a much more, I would say what I would call a very traditional 9-to-5 job, you go to work one day and you're like, I'm learning how to be a cat and this is what I'm being paid to do as my job. Like that has to be a very bizarre feeling at some point.
There's definitely there was a realization where I was like, I'm crawling around. I'm getting paid to crawl around and dance.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It's like, what is this? You can't even comprehend it.
Yeah. And it's the extremes too. Because there's plenty of musicals where, you're playing a character and it's very acting. It's like, nope, you are a cat with a crazy name and crawling around and dancing around.
Yeah.
So what do you remember about what they told you when you did the story of like, here's what you need to know about Rumpleteazer?
Yeah. Well, okay. To me, that sounds like two questions.
Okay.
Because I feel like the story is one thing, but like Rumpleteazer is another.
Okay.
And I think that the main focus in the beginning was on Rumpleteazer, like finding your individuality in your cat. And then after that was like, where does your cat fit into the story?
Okay. So you started with come up with your backstory.
Yes. Which, it was really fun. I will say this was one of my favorite parts of the beginning of the process was Chrissy Cartwright, who I don't know if you know that name.
Mm-hmm.
She was like very involved back in like the original production. So she had a lot of wisdom and knowledge to give to us. So probably on like our second day of rehearsal, she went around to each individual person and she gave you 3 adjectives to describe your cat. And I remember I sat there like wide-eyed, open ears, ready to hear it. And she told me naughty, impressionable, and effervescent. And I was like, okay, what does effervescent mean?
Yeah.
But I really kind of clung to those, and that like sort of just sprung me off in my character. And honestly, those 3 things felt very comfortable to me as like who I am and who I was during that time. So it felt easy to connect to Rumpleteazer in that way.
So when you're given your 3 words, you're kind of given a loose outline, right? At that point of like who your cat is.
Yes.
Were you given more, or was it like I think a lot about the relationships and stuff, because you have an obvious relationship because you dance with Uncle Jerry.
Yeah.
But there's so many others that you play off with that you have to, you're stage near and you dance near during the ball and stuff. Like how much of that is told to you versus how much of that is, okay, these are my 3 words. I got to embody this persona and then I got to add to it based off of that.
Yeah. I think it kind of is a natural cycle. Like I was technically a kitten in the show.
Yeah.
So it's like, that I did a lot of the same dancing things as Victoria, Tantamile, and Syllabub. And it's like, we're like, okay, we're little besties. And then it was like a lot of times Jenny was near me. So I was like, and she would, because of her words and how she acted, and she would interact with me. So it was like, oh, I think Jenny's my mom. Like, I think she's whipping me into shape. So as the staging came about is when we sort of formed those relationships. And like being on tour or in any show in general, when you have like an understudy or a swing or someone in, those relationships change like just a little bit too, which always makes it fun.
Yeah. So I always find that in a show like this, which is so open-ended, like there's a lot of interpretation to it, were you told that Jenny's your mom? Or was it we're just making an assumption based off of the way, and Jenny's kind of also decided that she's going to play that too, which was, who did you have? Did you have,
I had Emily Jean Phillips.
Emily Jean Phillips. Okay. So
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, we took that in our own hands for sure. They never told anyone like, you're their mom, you're their brother. Even with Rumpleteazer and Mungo, it was never like, you guys are brother and sister. And that was like a fun thing too, because with Tony and I, my original partner, like, we were brother and sister, like ride or die, best friends. That was that. But then when I had a different partner, it was like, oh no, we're just like, we're just friends. Then it was like, oh wait, maybe I have a crush on this Mungo. So the relationships were always different.
Yeah. So I think that's one that is unanswered, right? Like you could be brother, sister, you could be dating, you could just be, partners in Bonnie and Clyde, partners in crime type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
How deep did they go though? Like how much was this you can't change because this has to be key? Was it more about the overarching story, or was it more of like you've got to play exactly this relationship?
No, I think it was more the overarching story, and it was more like if your cat is young and playful and like naughty, then you can kind of interpret how would they interact with someone who is like maternal and stern. So that's sort of more where the relationships came into play, but we were never told. And I don't never relationship to someone, never like friend, mother, daughter, cousin, uncle. Those words were never used.
Okay. Well, at some point they're cats, right? So it's like maybe that's part of it. They're like, they're not doing that. Yeah. But it's a part of the fandom that there are like some where they're like, no, they are together, and some they are not, and some they're this. And I find that part fascinating by the show because it's really open-ended to how you all feel that day and who's on, like you said, and how you or if your friends off stage and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know. I think the fans too, they love that stuff and they love to like find the deep meaning. And it's like if my pinky toe touched Cassandra a different way one night, they would be like, wait a minute. I think they are even more into it than we are on stage because they like love it so much.
Oh, I'm very aware because I get a lot of responses and messages every once in a while when I make up a theory and they're like, that's not right. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not right. Like that's me making this up. Like this is a taking two very open-ended things and making an assumption. So, but I think it's what makes the show sustain 40 plus years is there's so many different characters. There's so much that people can like latch onto. That's you probably relate to one of the personality types in the tribe, and it gives you that opportunity.
That's something that I said from the beginning. Like, I think that's why the show, like you said, why it lasted so long, why the audiences are always coming back, why it's always a packed house. Because even if you don't understand the story, it's like, oh, that's the funny cat. That's the that's the calm cat. That's the naughty cat. Like you can get the vibe of the cats, and people like that because they feel seen a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, you see, there's generally one that you are most like, or that you can place somebody of like, oh, I've got a friend that's exactly like that. Yes. And it makes it relatable when they're cats, which is, there's plenty of musical theater I've seen where I'm like, I can't relate to any of these people. So I'm just watching a show. But I feel like that is because of how big the tribe is and how many people are there. And the fact that each song kind of explains what they are, you pick up on that really fast.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. So I got to ask a little bit about, you are the first tour that's going out for the show for a little bit of a while in the US. Like it hadn't been touring for a while. So you're bringing cats back to some cities that have not had cats in a while. What was the reception and tour like?
We were received so well on tour, and it was my first experience on tour, and I cannot imagine a better one. Like I said before, our audiences were constantly packed. Like that feeling is so thrilling, exciting, and it just gets your adrenaline pumping. Like every single city, we were basically sold out. And also it was the first version or tour that was out, that was Andy's version. So that was like kind of fun too, because really only like one other company, Broadway, had done it before. So it felt like, we're bringing like a fresh take on a classic to everyone. And I think some people were like, oh, well, what if they don't like it? But everyone loved it. It was like, I don't know. There were something too that I didn't ever experience a lot of was the stage door. And like our stage door was constantly flooded with people and kids and adults and whoever came to see the show, which it was just great. And I think the audiences loved it.
Yeah. It has an amazing fan base who loves it. And then it has a bunch of kids that it's something that a family can go see. And there's probably more than they realize, happening. But there's still like, you can bring all ages and have a good time. Although I argue like 13 to 18 probably maybe should stay home. It's a little too much going on there. What, you were on tour when all the chaos of the movie came out, of the 2019 movie came out. So we don't talk a ton about the movie on this podcast, but I find your tour in particular had this like very unique experience with this because this podcast started because of the trailer, which I think came out while you were on tour and kind of caused chaos.
Yes.
And then the movie came out while you are out and also caused its own chaos. So what was that experience like being so tied to this other thing that's not you all, but is definitely bringing an added component to your show?
Oh, yeah. It was very interesting because around that time, too, was when I feel like social media and like memes started really influencing everybody out there. And it was like the trailer came out and then 2 minutes later, it's like memes making fun of cats and like making fun of Taylor Swift as the cat and all this stuff. So it was like, oh no, what is this going to do to us? And I felt like not maybe our audiences were saying things to us about the movie, but more like the general public of like people in my life, like my muggle friends and family were like, wait a minute, is this what your show is like? Is this what you're doing? This is so weird that like, so I felt like it was a weird dichotomy because like at night, everyone's like, we love you, we love you. And then on social media and like hearing in my ear was like, this is so bizarre. This is so weird. You guys are not going to make it. We're like, what? Yeah. This isn't related.
Yeah. It's got to be hard in a sense because it's already hard enough to be like, I'm traveling around the country as a cat dancing every night. Like it's for anybody that's not in theater or understands like that as the job, it's hard enough to comprehend that. And then you add in this layer of this, all of the noise of that. I mean, that trailer caused a storm. And like, that's again, how this whole podcast started is I got so many messages that day. I remember that day so vividly because that trailer and Top Gun's trailer both launched on the same day. And
oh, really?
Yeah. And I saw Top Gun trailer and I was like, oh, this looks, really good. The new Top Gun movie. And I had like 30 people text me Catch trailer because I had made fun of the show after I saw it in 2016, kind of jokingly in a written format. So people just assumed I was obsessed. And I was like, I just made fun of it. I hadn't thought about it a lot, but I made my joke that ended up becoming the genesis of this podcast that day of the same thing where memes were taken off. I'm like, I'm jumping in on this bandwagon. And
I'm getting in on it.
I made my joke about Grisabella. And, but I just remember so like that, what you're saying about the memes, it was my entire feed.
Yes.
And I was able to know of like, I watched the Broadway version. I understand this is a very different Les Mis-ish style, like this is what's coming, but there's a lot of people that don't. And it's just like, oh, we're going to put these two things together. So I can't imagine the noise that created in your world going city to city where people aren't sitting in New York, in the theater district, aware of this industry as a, huge business that it is, and much more of the like, I'm in a rural town and I saw that on social media and now you're coming to my city.
Yeah, for sure. I think it got weird too because then we all went to see the movie. We were in Toronto at the time when it came out. Yes, we were in Toronto and everyone got together and went one night. I actually didn't go to that because my family was in town. But I went the next night. It was literally like Christmas night or the day after, I feel like it came out.
Yeah, it came out.
And afterward.
December.
Yeah. And afterward, everyone was like, what the heck? They made us look so bad. And like, they took such a big game that it was such a letdown. I think that was the biggest problem. We all were like, they hyped it up and like all of this, like AI, I guess. And like, they're supposed to look so real, but we were like, why were they wearing high heels? They're cats. Yeah. Like, why did they have human faces? We were so confused and like mad that they made it that way.
Did you see any difference in audiences after? Like, a couple weeks after it's been out now, people who have seen it, or what? Or did you just still get the Cats, theater and Cats fans at your show, and it just didn't really make any difference?
Yeah, I don't think we really saw a difference. Also, I feel like at that point, people like had their tickets already, so like, are you just not going to go?
I mean, totally. I don't think it changes ticket sales. I was more of like do you get a different vibe? But I would hope that anybody that is going understands the difference between the animated.
I think the vibe was still good.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure. The vibes were still up. They were good. But people did ask, like they would ask us, did you see the movie? Did you see the movie? So that was interesting.
Can't even imagine. I want to hear a little bit about, I love hearing tour stories, and you all were, the last tour that, before COVID, like before, like really stuff like really started to change because of how, it's a different industry now. Things are done a little bit different post COVID. And so you kind of had that fun and chaotic moment. Cause I know you weren't there when it kind of abruptly ended. And I even have on my desk over here, I have tickets from April of 2020 in Indiana that did not happen.
My gosh.
We were supposed to go to. But tell me some of the fun things that like you remember from being on tour, like the funny stories, the memorable moments that are shareable.
I mean, it was such a fun time. I don't know, like, if you remember the vibes of like New York City right before COVID, to me, it was like, everyone was buzzing and thriving and happy right before COVID. And I feel like that was the vibe on our tour. And specifically like me, I was like, I just turned 21. Like I'm going out. I just took advantage of everything I could. Some of my favorite memories are like the sound checks of like each new city, because we would show up and we would have our company meeting and they'd be like, okay, great. So half the set got here. Yeah. The soccer ball's deflated. We don't have the costumes. The wigs got wet. Like there was always something. So we'd be like, okay. Then you show up to sound check and you're wearing like your wig with no makeup, or like all your makeup with your hair down. And it's just like kind of silly. And getting to see the theater for the first time was always like really exciting. And, yeah, but sound checks to me were always just like fun and silly, because I felt like it was our time to sort of let loose a little, because we had to do a decent amount of like singing and different songs during that time, but it was our chance to sort of like, make fun of it a little, have fun, like do this, do that, and take it too far. So the sound checks were really fun for me.
Did any stop stand out for like a certain city because of family, friends, or joining, or just a town that it was like super memorable?
Okay. Yes. Hartford, Connecticut. I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay.
And Hartford was our second stop on tour. So we pecked in Providence, opened in Providence, and then we went right to Hartford. So this is like the biggest thing I've ever done. I'm so excited. I'm 40 minutes from the town I grew up in. And on our Saturday night show, my family and friends took a coach bus, and I think I had like 112 people in the audience on one night.
Wow. And
there were so many people that my mom went to, like, she came to every single show that week. My mom saw the show, like, sidebar, my mom saw the show 27 times.
27?
Yes.
She's a tour groupie rolling around with you all.
Yes. But she came before we were even in Hartford. She drove out to the theater and was like, listen, we're having all these people come. What can you do for us? And they were like, here's what we're going to do. Everyone's going to leave, because usually if you want to see someone after a show, you have to meet them at the stage door and then go back, blah, blah, blah. There's 112 people. How are we going to do that? So they were like, stay in your seat. Everyone will leave. So I had my 112 people sitting in the audience. I came out on the stage. They burst out screaming and clapping. I felt like a movie star.
Yeah.
And it just was so nice. And they all got to sort of like see the stage a little bit. And it just was nice. Like all of that love. That was really, really special.
That is so cool. And it's cool that they accommodate that, because it's, it's a once in a lifetime moment, especially in the beginning, your first tour, and you're so close to home. And I have this visual of your whole, like, it feels like a Texas football town where like everyone shuts down the whole city and gets on the bus and comes to watch your show. And as everyone, like the whole town just stopped what they're doing and came. I know you're not from that small of a town, but that's the visual I got.
It's more like picture everyone is in like a fur coat and they're like, we got to get the meatballs on the bus and we have to make sure we get the cutlets and bring her the cupcakes.
I love
And
it.
actually, okay, another memory and story from that same city. My family owns an Italian restaurant in Connecticut.
Okay.
So before one of our shows, my dad catered a big Italian meal, rigatoni vodka, meatballs, a salad. He had a cake made and like all of this crazy stuff. And we did that before a show too.
And you
which was
all
nice.
ate that before going to dance for 2.5 hours straight
Oh.
at a big Italian meal.
Absolutely.
You are brave.
Absolutely.
That is that's amazing. I will tell you the
Yeah.
reason, one of my big arguments of what I want the tour or regional theater to do, I would love a tour to do it, is to have an audience vote on the choice because of that exact example where I'm like, you on that night, Rumpleteazer is a jellicle choice if we're putting an audience vote because you have the crowd
Listen,
on your side.
I would be on that tire that night. I would have
I
went up.
want that for that exact reason. I think it would be so fun if, like, this is your night, or just randomly a night somebody delivered and gave like this, the performance of the night, and they voted. But imagine if you get to go on the tire on that night where your whole family's there.
Oh my gosh, that would have been wild.
Yeah. So I'm slowly inching my way to the right people to not on tour. They're never going to do it on tour, but I want a regional theater to do it.
Never on tour.
Maybe. I'm hoping.
That's the right
one day.
place. Mhm.
Where else outside of the hometown? You said your family was in Toronto. Did they come up to see it there when you were
They
performing?
did not 112 people,
Yeah.
but yeah. So my family came out. I'm really lucky. My family and I are really close, so they came to see me in a lot of places. But regardless of my family, a random little town that I just had a ball in was McAllen, Texas, which is
Ooh.
like right on the border, like at the bottom tip of Texas. And we were only there for like 3 days, but it was October, but it was like 97 degrees out. And we would go to the pool. And then afterwards, it was like the biggest party town ever. And we would just like go out and we would dance. And I have a memory of our Jelly Lorem at the time doing the Victoria solo in a bar in McAllen, Texas. And it was so iconic.
That is, I can only fathom the like townspeople out at their night, and all of a sudden you all roll up and post show coming in, having a drink, and then somebody
Yes.
does the solo, does the whole Victoria dance.
Oh, yeah.
They were probably not ready
Yes.
for that.
They were not ready, but the energy was unmatched in that town.
I love it. It's always fun to like, I feel like that's got to be one of the coolest parts, especially so early in your career and at a younger age, being
Mhm.
able to see so much of the country, but also do this kind of very unique and cool thing in places that otherwise you would probably never step foot in.
Oh, for sure. I remember like 3 months in calling my mom and being like, I would do this for free, but I'm getting paid. And like, what? I'm like, all of my friends are in college, waking up at 6 a.m. for their classes and hustling and all this. And I'm putting on silly makeup in a unitard every night and I'm traveling somewhere different every week. Like, I was like, this is a dream and a half.
Yeah, that is, I can't even fathom. I want to do some
Mhm.
rapid fire. So if you could go
Okay.
on for one night for any cat, male, female, it doesn't matter if you could sing, dance, if you just one night, I'm going to go on, I can do it. Who am I going as? Who should you go
Mhm.
on as?
McCavity.
You want to do McCavity. You want to be the villain.
Yes, that's so fun.
I love it. Who are your favorite and least favorite cats? So take actors out of it, just characters.
Okay, obviously Rumpleteazer.
I'm going to take her. I'm not going to allow Rumpleteazer because of course you're
Okay,
close to it, so.
fine, whatever. My favorite cats are probably Bomb Ballerina. I like Skimbleshanks a lot.
Mhm.
I like, you are not going to like this, but I'm like, I don't need Gus. I'm okay with him.
Oh, okay. So Gus is the owl. Wow.
He's kind of on the outs for me.
That is a hot take for a lot of listeners.
It's a hot take. It's a hot take.
Okay. That's not good for my last question. but-
Honestly, you know what? Okay. Sorry. But I guess like in the same vein, like Bustifer.
Yeah. He's probably the most common answer when I ask about dislike is Bustifer, which is also the same person, right?
Yeah,
It's Bus and Gus.
Yes.
Okay. Favorite song from the show?
It's Gimbleshanks.
Oh, what a bop. Someone told me to start running to it. And
Such a
I'm
bop.
like, it feels like a great running song.
Ironically enough, it came up in a dream of mine. Like I haven't thought about cats in a while, and it came up in a dream of mine like 3 weeks ago.
Wow. That's
Yeah, Gimbleshanks.
I have no follow-up questions there. Okay, this is my fun one. I always ask a fun one. And before we started recording, we talked about how during COVID, you did some real estate on the side as a job. So which cat do you think would make the best real estate agent?
Jenny.
Jenny, that's a great answer. I think
Jenny. I feel like she is on top of her game. She's organized. She knows how to whip someone in shape. She's going to make sure that they're getting their pre-approval on time. They're getting their clear to close on the right day. She gets paid at closing, not a minute later.
Yeah. I was thinking Jenny and Skimble because of the organization.
Yeah.
And then I think I want Mustafali is doing my like staging and design.
Oh, 100%. You know that's going to be fabulous.
Yeah. Okay. Most important question of this podcast. And I'm now nervous because Gus is your least favorite cat.
Uh-oh.
I have argued at length. I don't think Grisabella is the correct Jellicle choice. So I want to hear you, Rose. Are you going to pick Grisabella and I want to hear your defense, or are you going to pick a different Jellicle choice?
I'm ready. And I'm going to stick by Grisabella.
Oh, no. Okay. Give me the rationale.
Okay. Here's my thing. Grisabella, even though she was an outcast, she might have done wrong. She put herself out there. She worked hard on the night that it mattered most. She put in the work. She showed off. She was like, you want to hear me belt high? I'm going to do it. You don't want me here, but I'm here early. I'm on time. I'm in the right outfit. I feel like she did every single thing right. And the whole point of the tribe is that we're supposed to stick by each other. So what kind of a tribe would we be if now, when she needed us most, we just left her out in the rain?
So I agree completely with that. But my next thing is, why can't she spend the year with her family?
Okay, I think she's been troubled. She has a lot going on.
So she doesn't have another year. She's got to go now.
I think this is it for her. And she knows it too. That's why she's working so hard. It's why she's pleading. If she knew that there was like even an inch of hope for her, maybe next year, maybe she can get her life together, maybe she'll start coming around for the holidays. No, she knows this is her last chance.
So she goes, let's say she goes this year. Well, she does go this year because that's the way the show ends. How does Old Deuteronomy pick next year? Is there another cat out there in the ether that's coming back, or is it a different criteria, or how does this work annually since we're only given one night?
Yeah, I think that this was a special occasion. This one was kind of different than any other because as you're, going through the show, when you're hearing the invitation to the Jellicle Ball, you hear about what the ideal Jellicle should be. And really you're like, oh, Grisabella is none of these things.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, we pick her because of what we are supposed to represent as a tribe. So I think that the following year, we're probably not picking another Grisabella. I also think that, it's Old Deuteronomy. He is strategic and he knows she's around. He knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants it to be a learning experience for the rest of the tribe. And I think he's hoping that if we do this tonight, it's only going to better everyone else.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that part at all. I just think that she's next year's choice. I think she should come back and spend a year with her family and get to, you re-accept her finally. And then it's like, cool, let's murder you. Let's re-accept you and let's enjoy time with our family.
I just feel like the bridge had been burned so bad. And it was like part of the reason why she was chosen is because we were reminded of all of those characteristics that make us Jellicles to begin with. Because on any normal day, if it was next Tuesday and she showed up, we're probably going to be like, no, we're not giving you another chance. But on that night where we're reminded of all of these things, that's why we are more accepting.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I'm changing your mind, but that's okay.
I don't think you are.
I've got, she still has less than half the votes, but she still is the most vote getter. And I didn't think when we did this that I was going to ever get this close to getting more people to say not Grisabella, but we're getting there slowly.
No, I like Grisabella. How's that? I tell you why not Gus.
Okay.
A little different. I think the main difference for me between Gus and Grisabella is that I just don't think he worked as hard. And I think if he really wanted it, he could have proven it a little bit more.
So is his number changing, or is there other things happening to get him? Like he doesn't have to be. He's not Bustafer, so he just gotta be Gus the whole night.
Yeah, I don't know. Be there, and like part of me too is like, you know what? I get it, and I feel like I'm sympathetic towards him, and I know he's old and he has this great story, and we let him relive his youth one last time. It's like, you know, after all these years, you couldn't convince us. So now, like, what's changed tonight? Yeah.
So I think that's fair. I think Gus is the fallback answer because he's the old one that looks like he's about to die anyways. I still want, the world I want is I want it to be American Idol-ish, which means that as a live show, every night, someone else is going to bring it. And there are going to be nights where Grisabella will win because memory is iconic and she will deliver a incredible performance. And there are going to be nights like in Hartford, Connecticut, where I bet you in front of 112 of your friends and family brought it that night. And I want Rumpleteazer to go. And so I think there are nights that, you know, it's 8 shows a week. There are going to be nights where it's not going to be everyone's best, or it's going to be a day, but someone probably had a stellar performance. And I think the audience will notice that. And I want a vote.
I stand by that. That's actually such a great idea. It's just, you know, who puts the harness on and when.
There's enough technology now that this is possible to happen.
You're right.
So
where there's a will, there's a way.
That's my dream, is that I say this enough into this microphone on this show that somebody's like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I will be there. Wow. This has been so fun. How can people stay in touch with you and everything you're working on? Social media and everything. Yeah.
You could follow me on Instagram. It's Rose Iannaccone. That's my last name. IANNACCONE 98. Yeah, Instagram. Hang out with me.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories and your fun. And it was a blast to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a ball.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other listens podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.